Well, if the ISRO-Devas multimedia deal, the latest scam, goes through, it could lead to a loss of almost 2 lakh crore for the Exchequer. Well, the Prime Minister's office has denied this, but the surprising part is that the 5-year-old contract still has not been cancelled. And now the government has appointed a probe that raises further questions. And today we try and understand what exactly does all of this mean. And joining us is our panel tonight, the National Executive Member of the BJP, Mahesh Jethmalani. He's joining us straight from Mumbai. In our studio, we're pleased to have with us Political Editor of the Hindustan Times, Vinod Sharma, and also Political Editor of Business Standard, Aditi Fadnis Mehta. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here with us on NewsX. But before we start the discussion, let's take a look at today's developments.
The members of the cabinet were informed about the background, and we were also informed that the Prime Minister has constituted a high-power commission consisting of 2 members, Mr. B.K. Chaturvedi and Mr. Narasimhan, and they have been mandated to give their report within 1 month.
We today again reiterate our demand that whether it is 2G, Commonwealth Games, Adarsh, black money, or even the NIAS S-band spectrum, no question raised by the opposition has been answered by the Prime Minister and the Congress Party President Sonia Gandhi.
Yes, there was a contract which was entered into. The Space Commission, in its wisdom, found that the contract was not possibly the best which should have been entered into. They recommended annulment of the contract. So therefore, that is where the matter stands.
All right, so let's start the discussion. Let me come to you first, Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani, National Executive Member of the BJP, joining us from Mumbai. Mr. Jethmalani, the Congress Party and the government's response has been very interesting to the fact that an agreement between ISRO and Devas Multimedia could end up costing the Exchequer 2 lakh crore, a loss of that to that tune. But the PMO has said no spectrum has been allocated and therefore the question of a revenue loss does not arise. Your take on this, sir?
Well, it seems to be a case of a thief getting caught with his hand in the till, because this is all ex post facto wisdom because of the suspected CAG report likely to indict the notional loss of 2 lakh crores. This seems to be a reaction to that. So I can't say that the government has acted above board, but yes, thanks to public outcry, the 2G spectrum scandal, the government has halted in its track. Otherwise it would have awarded another extremely questionable contract pertaining to S-spectrum transponders and 2 ISRO satellites to a party with dubious credentials.
Ms. Mehta, we come to you now. Kapil Sibal yesterday, in fact, went one step further. He said, and I'm quoting him here, how can ISRO hand over spectrum when Department of Telecom has not given a license? Spectrum allocation has to be done by our department, unquote. Do you agree with him? Ms. Mehta, the question was for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
was talking about Kapil Sibal. Yes. Kapil Sibal, in fact, has gone ahead and said that how even DOT has not given the spectrum to the company. How can they, in fact, allocate it further?
Well, I think it's quite complex. Several companies, private equity companies, Deutsche Telekom, have formed our investors in this venture, which is supposed to be something that is being tried out on an experimental basis for the first time ever by ISRO. Now, ISRO's plans to set up a satellite which will provide this spectrum have so far proved abortive, and therefore already several private sector investors have lost quite a lot of money. But it's research which is in progress. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, the CAG calculated even in spectrum, 2G spectrum, the CAG said that there were 4 ways of calculating the loss. And at the end of the day did not really say which one was the right way.
Before we come to the loss point, there's complete denial of anything ever being given also.
I don't think there's complete denial. In fact, I think the government's handling of this whole business has been very, very bad.
Okay.
And actually it's a test case about how these issues should not be handled. The handling of the whole S-band. It took the Prime Minister's office almost 30 hours after the incident to say that, you know, no irregularity had taken place and so on. The handling is bad.
All right, the handling is bad.
Yeah.
Let me now come to Mr. Vinod Sharma. Mr. Sharma, even if the spectrum has not been handed over, the truth is there that there was a contract signed. We're talking about 2005, and this contract was between Antrix and Devas Multimedia, in which Devas Multimedia got 10 transponders with exclusive use of 70 megahertz of S-band spectrum. If there was none of this, then the main question right now is why was there a contract in the first place entered to?
Well, that's the question. In fact, the contract was entered between Antrix and Devas under the tutelage of the, this ISRO.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, the Space Commission and the Cabinet were offered a fait accompli by way of this contract. Now, this raises questions about the systems, whether this was legitimate on the part of ISRO or Antrix, its a commercial arm, to have unilaterally entered into a contract of this nature, A. B, it is a fact that there is no satellite today and there is no transponder, and thereby there is no allocation of spectrum. But the question here is that whether this was rightly done by ISRO or not.
Not exactly.
And thereby, I would request you that to flaunt a figure of 2 lakh crore loss is grossly, I think, not correct. It's in fact somewhat not responsible act.
All right. In
because
fact,
there is no 2 lakh crore loss here because nothing has been given yet.
Let's talk about the legality of it. Let's once again go back to Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani. Mr. Jethmalani, you're a lawyer. Please tell us. You heard Mr. Vinod Sharma talking about no loss on the ground today. Even if there is no loss today, will there be a cost when one pays financial penalties? Because as he also said that one is unilaterally defaulting on the contract at least.
Yes, I mean, so far as the CEO of Devas Multimedia is concerned, I read his statement and he certainly seemed to be feeling that the contract is very much existence. It's a valid and binding contract. Under the contract, Devas Multimedia has complied with all its obligations that ISRO and the Space Commission asked it to do. So, as far as he's concerned, he said, look, there's a binding contract, we moved 10 steps forward, and 2 years ago we were supposed to get transponders, satellite and S spectrum, and it's been delayed. So far as we are concerned, there's a contract which we will seek to enforce. Now the government, of course, has been caught with its hand in the till. So, suddenly because of this whole, it's realized that its undervaluation of 2G spectrum now is common knowledge, and so it can't get away on the S spectrum issue as well on an undervaluation. I'm not saying it's necessarily 2 lakh crores. These are presumptive figures, but it's one possible figure. So let's not get tied down to figures, but the fact is there was a valid and binding contract entered into by everybody, and the government is now backtracking on that contract because it has been caught.
Mr. Vinod Sharma.
No, frankly, I would, of course, Mahesh would say that it's one possible figure, but there's a saying in Hindi, कि गांव बसा नहीं चोर पहले आ गए. अरे गांव तो बसा ही नहीं था. There was no village to be looted, and thereby there was a plan. Perhaps some people erred or deliberately collaborated with that company to offer them spectrum at a throwaway price. But the question is that nothing has been allocated.
But Mr. Sharma, there was no village, but there was a plan in place to loot the village.
You see, that is the problem. The problem is genuine because of the 2G scam. Everything that is coming to the fore is being suspected, and perhaps rightly so. Public opinion is turning cynical and very badly, and all of us are impacted. But I think that as people who have some knowledge must be talking with a degree of discretion and restraint.
Ms. Mehta, make your point.
I think it's not a question of whether a company was favored or it wasn't favored. In 2G spectrum, we saw corporate rivalry and people trying to outdo business houses fighting with each other and trying to influence the allocation of spectrum. I don't see anything like that in this case. This is a very technical case. There is a company which has the expertise. I don't think anyone else has made the claim that they were given and we were not given. That hasn't happened.
All right, but then again, there is some conflict on the timing of the contract.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
And I would like to treat this case with a degree of caution because it involves an entire scientific community of this country. It involves ISRO. It is a prime institution. which is internationally recognized and
That's
respected.
all the
No,
more,
no,
sir,
I know
all
that is
the
all
more
the more
reason
so
to try and understand
that
what's
is
happening.
all the more the
Okay,
reason
let
that
me take
we
this
wait
question.
that we wait for the inquiry outcome.
So let's-
and if there is such a great if there is such a great suspicion,
Okay.
then let the opposition demand perhaps a judicial commission into
All
it.
right, all right. Let's just talk about what we have right now. So let's not be presumptive, but the government is saying, ISRO chairman, in fact, that a decision to scrap the contract was taken in July 2010. Kapil Sibal is saying that the Department of Telecom had objected to it to possibly as far back as 2007. But the fact is the contract still continues and has not been revoked. What do you make of this?
You know, I will tell you. You see, when you have to get out of a legally binding contract, you can't do it in a jiffy. You see, you would like to reduce your losses, cut your losses by way of your liabilities. You know, that is what perhaps the government is trying to do. I don't know whether that is the reason, but that
Mr.
could be
Mahesh
one reason.
Jethmalani, do you
And
agree with
Mahesh
this
would be
point?
in a better position to say it because he's a lawyer.
All right, Mr. Jethmalani, go ahead.
No, Vinod is trying to make a defense of the government, and let's
No,
look,
again,
I
I
agree
mean,
with
each
him.
time you
Let's
say that
all
I'm
be
trying to make a
rational.
defense
Let's
of the
not
government.
get
I'm
carried
not.
away. But there is okay, but there's an issue. You're not all right. You're not doing it consciously. You're doing it unconsciously, because unconsciously your prejudices
Let's
are
not
well
pass
known.
value
But the
judgment
fact
on what
of the
you are
matter
saying
is-
and what I am saying.
let's
You always
let's
do
just-
that.
there's
Don't
one-
try
there's
to
one-
delegitimize an argument by saying,
All
oh, you're
right,
trying to
but
defend the government.
let's
Who
one-
are you trying to defend?
All right, let me.
Mr.
Let me
Jethmalani,
get
go
to-
ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to. I'm trying to expose an issue.
I'm trying
And let
to
me just-
understand from you. You're a
let me-
lawyer.
Yeah, let me just tell you what the issue is. Yes, Vinod, I'm coming to it. Just give me a minute. Let's not get sidetracked on tutu meme. As what I'm saying is that there was a valid and binding contract. You yourself admitted, Vinod. Now, before you entered into a valid and binding contract, you should have made sure, whoever entered into this contract, and please tell me that we have an economist prime minister heading this department. He should have vetted it. First of all, it is his duty as an economist. I mean, any economist or any public servant, in the matter of any public asset, his prime obligation is to see that the asset fetches the maximum value. I think revenue maximization is something which can never be sacrificed. So the way to do this for all scarce commodities, all public assets, is to have an auction, Now, somebody on your program said that there was nobody else, there was no corporate rivalry. That doesn't make a difference. What is
All right.
once you have a touchstone of maximum revenue yield, then you must have an auction. Why did you enter into a valid binding without having adequate knowledge
All
and
right.
without going through the auction process?
All right, point made, sir. I'll take your point forward with Mr. Vinod Sharma, but another question added to that. The government may be in denial mode, but the Devas Multimedia, they in fact have today said that it had all appropriate approvals from the government for its business, and it still has the legally binding agreement with Antrix. Isn't this a big blow to the status position of the government and the Congress
Are
party?
you coming back to the same issue again and again?
It is the
Because
main
you
issue
think
right
because
now.
you think that legitimacy of this program would be there only if you keep on hammering the same point in.
No, sir.
You are not trying to have a serious argument.
Sir, it's an
I'm sorry to
absolutely
say.
serious
What
argument,
I'm
sir.
trying to say,
Sir,
what
go
I
ahead.
am trying to tell you is, and Aditi made the same point, that there has been quite clearly an oversight or carelessness or lack of adequate vigil on the part of the government. So there is an act of omission. Whether there is an act of commission is not established, and there is no act of commission because nothing has transpired on the ground. No spectrum has been allocated, no transponder is in place because there is no satellite in place. So there is just a contract in place, and the government is saying that we want to cancel this contract. Now the question that you should be debating is as to at what cost in terms of the money drained out of the national exchequer and in terms of the credibility of the government by way of efficient governance.
Isn't the credibility taking a
No,
beating
no,
with
no. I'm not
saying-
here to pass a value judgment whether the credibility is taken a beating or not, because I have not taken a survey, unlike my friend Mahesh Jethmalani, who's a dear friend of mine, but he always says I do tutu meme with him. I do tutu meme whenever I
taken a
legitimately
survey
ask him
either.
a question.
I don't claim to have
when
taken
I
a
ask
survey.
him a question, and as a lawyer, he doesn't answer it back to me. I mean, he doesn't want to educate me. He only wants to
So you know what
delegitimize
we'll
my
do,
argument.
Mr. Jethmalani, Mr. Vinod Sharma and Ms. Mehta, we will keep the tutu meme and the discussion forward after a short break right here on Spectrum Scam. Please stay with us.